What's going on, guys? Steve here with Cherry Picking Cards. Hopefully you're all having a great day so far. I am back with another video. This go around it's very different. I'm not going to be ripping any packs or showing off cards for submissions to be graded, things like that. It's actually going to be more of an informative video, definitely going to be opinion based for sure. As you guys can see, we've got 3 different cards up here that are all graded by 3 different grading companies, and these are all becoming really well known in the hobby. On my far left we've got SGC, we've got in the middle PSA, and then to the far right we've got Beckett. And then Beckett, didn't really start off the whole grading process, but they're really well known for the Beckett guides that they had put out for decades, which kind of put an evaluation on card prices and kind of, what card stores should sell them for, people should trade them for. Just kind of gave everything, cards, an actual value for the market as well. Of course, that was opinion based as well. A lot of it is supply and demand. That's a lot of it. What it is today is supply and demand. What are collectors willing to pay? But ultimately, they put a guide together for the hobby and said this should be pretty fair price point for everything. And eventually, decades later, into the mid '90s, PSA kind of said, what, we have a way to make things a little bit better. By ensuring what the quality of a card is and ensuring the value of that card, so you're not paying high end for something that's really not in the best of condition. And so they they innovated the whole grading system, in that they encapsulated these cards, they put in there the label that says, hey, it's worthy of 1 to 10 condition, and basically with that kind of dictates the value of the card, but also gives that the owner or the collector of that card peace of mind of what they really have in hand is what the true condition of it is. And of course it is kind of subjective, based on the grader and maybe the day they're having or whatever the variable is, but ultimately I think it's a pretty fair grading scale to what they use and the way that it's all done. And so I think that PSA really kind of, like I said, set the tone for all that and built a system for everything. And not too far behind them was Beckett. Like I said, they kind of had everything started with the whole what prices should be valued at. And so when they saw what PSA was doing, they knew that this was really the next step in the hobby, and that was putting a fair condition of what things actually should be listed at, based on the cornering, the surfaces, edges, and centering. Those are the main things there. And as you can see on the label, some of them don't always have that, but that is basically what you look for when you're doing the grading itself. And so Beckett, I think it was early 2000s kind of got into the game of it all, of getting grading going. And then SGC has actually been around a while, but then they've kind of changed the way that they do things within their company and the organization, and the brand has really evolved over the past year, a couple of years. And so they've exploded, especially the past couple of months. And so SGC is, I'd still put them at kind of third as far as popularity, if you will, but they're definitely they're exploded, and I think their population reports are just going to be sky high here pretty soon once they start to release all those numbers officially. But what I'm really going to be looking at here when I'm kind of deciding, hey, which one do I prefer the most between these 3 companies, are the the ultimate quality of it all, and that's based on look, feel, and value. When you just see these cards just sitting there, which one really catches your eye? And that's a lot of it that's based around, of course, the label and the case they come in. And then, not only that, but when you see them and you go to actually pick them up and you hold them in your hand, what does that quality actually feel like? The durability, the size, the weight, all that stuff. And then the main thing I think a lot of collectors are looking for, and it's not, we don't always want to sell them, but what are they valued at? What are they really worth? And so you got that sell price versus the cost to grade. And so, your ROI, if you will, on everything. And so I'll kind of look at all that. We'll talk a little bit about, I'll use the John Morant PSA 10 because that's definitely my highest valued card at this point, and definitely looking forward to just watching what that does in the future as well. But I'll use that kind of as a gauge because there's a pretty high pop report for PSA, BGS, and SGC for this, the base version. So I have a pretty fair estimate, an idea of what the value is as of today here, late August. And of course, that number is going to change in the future for sure, but just as of today, we'll kind of go off of the values, and kind of gives you a feel for what to expect for these grading companies, and maybe help you to decide which way you want to go and which one may be best for you. And ultimately, that is up to you, of course. But yeah, I'll go ahead and start with SGC to my far left here. When I just go off of the look of everything, of course, that black case really stands out. They call it putting in a tuxedo. That's really the kind of the term they're using. You know, if you go into SGC, you're getting your card put in a tux. They do use a 1 through 10 scale. They use the 0.5 increments, including a 9.5, but that's not gonna be a gem mint for them. To get a gem mint, it has to be a 10, but they also have a gold label, the pristine. And for that one, those are of course much more rare, much harder to get than versus just a 10, or even, and a 10 is even more uncommon than, you know, than a 9.5, of course. And so if you get a 10, it's definitely a great thing. It's a gem mint. And when I look at the label with the black on black, it looks okay. To me, I don't like how you can kind of see these exposed corners there. I'm not a huge fan of that. It just looks kind of weird with the little see-through action in the most random of places. Especially if you had a die cut, it might just really kind of look a little bit off, if you will. And then with the black label, it just doesn't allow the things to quite stand out enough, in my opinion. If you had that gold label, I'm sure it would definitely look really unique. But with the black on black, it's just kind of dull, in my opinion. And then, but yeah, the overall case, I do like the black. I think it's unique, and that's what really sets it apart. But overall, it just seems to me, in my opinion, that it's just with the black label on the black casing, it's just a little bit too dull, and I'm not a huge fan of it. And they have evolved before. I think they used to have green labels. Things looked very different, but this is kind of, they've modernized it and what they, you know, what they like to say in their own words. And I'm not a huge fan of it personally. I've never done any kind of like submissions to SGC, but I did win that, you know, through a RAS, and so I was pretty excited about that. And then we'll go over here to the far right. We'll go with Beckett. And for their version of a gem mint, it's a 9.5. It says it doesn't even have to be a 10. If you get a 10, they're actually going to refer to that as the pristine, similar to SGC, and it's still going to be the gold label. What's different about them with their labels is anything, you know, they use the 1 through 10 scale. If you get a 9 or lower, that is, it's going to be a silver label. If you get a gem mint 9.5 or a 10 pristine, it is that gold. The big one though that Beckett does offer is that black label. Black labels are very hard to get, of course. That just means that card is in the most amazing condition. It just doesn't get any better than that ultimately. And so with that said, I mean, with this gem mint 9.5 to kind of compare with the other ones that we're looking at, just strictly gem mints here, I really like the fact that their label does offer the grading scale there. You get to see, you know, based on how they determined where they got to that 9.5 or whatever the case may be, that number there. And you can see the centering, the corners, the surface, and the edges. In this case, they're all 9.5, so this would be labeled as a true gem mint. You know, you can maybe get 1 9 in there, and it's still going to be a 9.5, but if you have 9.5s across the board, or maybe even 3 9.5s and a 10, that's definitely going to help out quite a bit, and just looks a little bit better on the label. But true gem mints are definitely what you want to look for if you can. But I really like the gold label. I'm not a huge fan of how Beckett's is kind of clear. If you look at it, you can definitely, you know, miss the branding on it pretty easily, especially at the wrong angle. And then case-wise, I mean, I like the clear look. It's completely see-through. We'll see here a PSA is slightly different when we look at it up close. But ultimately, I really like, and the variation of labels of black, silver, and gold, I think that's really huge. It's easy to tell immediately what kind of a grade you're gonna get. If you see that black label, your jaw drops and you get, you know, your heart skips a couple beats, because that's definitely one of the best grades you're ever gonna get for sure. But yeah, I definitely like Beckett overall with just the look. Like I said, I think the variation of labels, with even just, you know, the more common ones being the gold for the 9.5, I really dig it. I really like the scale they use with the 4 labels there. Anytime that, or with the grading scale, there's the 4 different things. Anytime that somebody doesn't get those on there, I'm really just not a huge fan. I don't see why you wouldn't want to get that, honestly. It does decrease the value for sure. Anytime you get that, I feel like collectors really know a better reason as to why that card got that particular grade. And so I really, really like the fact that they offer these subgrades. That was the term I was looking for, but the subgrades I really dig. I like variation in label colors, but the one thing I don't like really is just that the Beckett doesn't stand out quite enough. I think they need to do a little bit more with maybe getting that to stand out just slightly more. And now we'll go with PSA. And like I said, they're kind of the OG, been around the longest, and kind of set the standards for it all, if you will. They do not use a 9.5. They do have 0.5 increments up through at 8.5, and then it gets to 9, and then it just, you either get a 9 or a 10 at that point. If you get a 10, it's definitely a good day. The label, I'll be honest, it's a little bit plain. There's really nothing too exciting going on. I love the fact that it does have that PSA logo there. That's kind of evolved over time too. It's changed slightly, where it has kind of hologram style. I think that looks great. Let me bring it in a little bit closer, because what I wanted to say earlier was the case. You can kind of see it's kind of a I don't want to say rustic. It's just kind of this. It's not completely see-through, but there's a little bit of texture to it for sure. So it's got a little bit of a texture going on, which I don't mind, but I prefer how Beckett's just completely clean, that perfectly see-through plastic that I really dig. And so they're very similar, but I think Beckett probably has one notch up just with the cleaner look to the casing. But I really like, you know, the label. It's very traditional, the red and white. It's classic, it's iconic, and I like the hologram that they've implemented there. I'm not a huge fan of the little barcode, honestly, but I think that's just for them, for their systems and whatnot, for everything to be, you know, put in. But I think PSA, I would put them probably 2 as far as look. I'm gonna rank them Beckett 1, PSA 2, and SGC 3 as far as overall on the look. Now we're gonna move on to the feel. And so I've kind of already done that, but when you actually go to pick up a card, let's say you're at a card shop, or when you finally get that mail day and you get them in hand, what is it, you know, you get it and you look at it up close, what does it feel like? You know, to me, the one thing I'm gonna be very gentle with this, because SGC, and you might be able to hear this, but you can't really hear it a lot now, but the cards do sometimes shift in there slightly, and they just might rattle enough. I'm being very gentle, not doing it as hard as I can, but that's one thing I've noticed sometimes with SGC cards, is sometimes they will move slightly in there. And so they are heavier. They're definitely one of the heavier versions of the cases, much heavier than PSA in my opinion. I believe they're a little bit bigger as well, and dimension-wise, as far as height, maybe similar width. But to me, they just feel kind of, not really heavy, but they do feel a little bit bulkier. I definitely noticed that, like I said, sometimes the cards kind of clank around overall. The back of it, yeah, I mean, it doesn't, feels nice. It does feel durable. I mean, honestly, I mean, after filling all of them plenty of times, I mean, I feel like the durability is definitely there with the plastic casing, but I'm definitely, you know, I despise the fact that they do that, honestly, and that was something that I would highly suggest that they change. I don't know if that's just something they feel is unique, but I don't like the fact that I feel like your cards can easily shift around in the casing. And so, but size-wise, I think it's not too bad. It is a little bit heavier than PSA, but SGC I feel feels pretty good overall. When I hold a Beckett slab, though, it does feel to me the heaviest of the bunch, but it just has some girth to it. But it really feels sturdy. Like if any of these were to drop on the ground, I feel like this one probably has the best shot of surviving and not taking nearly as much damage. Of course, I would never want to experiment like that, but I feel like this one really provides the most durability. It just feels the strongest. It feels more like a glass versus a plastic, I guess you could say. And the card certainly does not shift around. I like how everything feels perfectly in place. It just kind of, you can see how everything's kind of, I'm not sure what the terms are, but the way they encase things in there, it just has these little lines that just kind of perfectly keep things in place, and I really, really like that. And so yeah, the case to me feels great. I mean, corners feel nice and rounded. I'm not, not seeing anything move around. I've heard complaints before, and then things to look out for. Sometimes the labels can get bubbles or can move. In this case, though, it looks nice. It's clean. There's no scratches on the case, so I think it's handled well by them. And so yeah, I really have nothing to complain about with the feel. When I get a Beckett slab in my hand, I feel like it's strong, it's sturdy, it's good quality, and it's not overly bulky by any means. PSA, I really, really like the lightweight to it. It certainly feels like it could break if it were to fall. It doesn't quite have the same durability factor as a Beckett, but I feel like the cards are in there so incredibly well. Like I feel like with a Beckett slab, you can see like a penny sleeve almost in there, whereas with PSA, you just don't notice that. They're just perfectly in place. Yeah, there's a little space up there for the corner, but nothing's really shifting. It's not moving around. And so yeah, I really, really like the PSA casing quite a bit. And so to me, I feel like the quality is pretty high just because it feels pretty solid. It's not as durable necessarily, but size-wise, I'd probably prefer this over SGC. So if I'm gonna rank, based on the feel, I'm definitely gonna go with Beckett 1, PSA 2 and SGC 3. Value wise, this is where it really, kicks in. This is what I think the most important thing is. Not to everybody by any means. Some people just want to collect cards just to have in their collection. It's their favorite player, team, complete a set, whatever the case is. But to me, I think, ultimately it is exciting to know how valuable a card can become, especially when you hold on to it from an investment standpoint. But by far the cheapest company to go with grading wise is going to be SGC. The best way to do it, in my opinion, is to go through a group sub unless you feel very comfortable doing the process yourself and you're already doing so many shipments that of so many cards that you may be getting a bulk discount to begin with. But by going through group submission, you're typically going to get that extra discount, which really is huge. In my opinion. And then they do the evaluation process, they do the entry of the paperwork, everything that needs to be done to get it all prepared. And so I really like that all. Some of them offer the wipe down service as well, but I feel like, just get all that taken care of ahead of time. You don't have to worry about any of that other than maybe them just noticing a little ding or something that you just overlooked, but they get the discounted price. Most importantly, they get it shipped out. It sometimes has a delay, of course, because you're having to wait for them to do that, to get it all prepared and shipped out. But I just feel like that the savings there to me is really the most important thing by doing that. But SGC roughly is going to be about $15, I'd estimate, if you went through like a group sub. Probably even a little bit less, but that's just kind of a higher estimate to maybe get something like a jaw card, a jaw Moran, if you were to submit the Prism. And of course they use a declared value, and so you want to factor that in. So for me, I would just say it's going to cost probably about $15 to get it graded, which is very inexpensive, of course. And if you want it done faster, you can certainly pay more than that. You can pay quite a bit these days to get your cards back within a couple days. But kind of a fair estimate with that 30-day turnaround. But about $15, I'd say, for SGC. For BGS, it's going to be about $30, depending on which group sub that you use. But I'd say on average, it's going to be about $30. Just kind of doing my research, the ones I've seen. And then for PSA, about $25. So there's definitely some differences there. It's not a huge difference overall. I think you really have to decide, is it really worth it to try to go through Beckett to maybe get a better grade, to get that 10 or something along those lines? That's really what you have to ask yourself, to spend a few dollars more. Do you want to go with PSA and maybe have a better chance of getting a 10 and maybe save a little bit of money and the cost to actually get it graded? Or do you just want to go to SGC simply for the economics behind it, and you just want to save some money and just hope for the best with the grading side of it all? So that's kind of a personal thing you have to decide. But as far as what these values are, the numbers don't lie, and these are just based on really recent eBay comps over the past week or two on eBay that I've seen. And this is, I'd say, maybe mid to end August. A jaw, we'll start with SGC. Over here, we've got a jaw 10 gem mint is going to be about $400. So definitely not too bad, considering you're only, like I said, only going to pay about $15. So pretty good return on investment there. And if you get one of those gold pristine labels, I haven't seen any sold. I have only seen one and it's listed, of course, and you can ask for anything you want when it's the only one out there, but they're all wanting $2,000. So it definitely shows you that the potentials, you can get a lot if you can get one of those. Get real lucky and get a pristine 10 from SGC, because it's very rare, but you can certainly get a lot of money for that for sure. We'll move on to BGS because they do offer a couple different things. Their gem mint, the 9.5, is by far the lowest valued ones between these three. It's about $275. Of course, that can go up in the future, but right now it's about $275. But if you get that 10, which isn't super hard or super rare by any means, it is not the easiest thing to accomplish by any means, but if you were to get a 10, they're going for about $1,100. There's not a lot of them sold, but definitely if you get one, it's certainly going to increase the value to about $1,100. And if you get a black label, and I've only seen, I think, 2 of them even sold, and that was clear back in June, and they were for about $3,600. So if you get a jaw Morant Prism base black label, it's for $3,600. So that's definitely a huge value there, especially if you only maybe paid like, well, you'd probably get an upcharge, but definitely going to be the biggest ROI. as far as what you're going to get on that return on everything. And then we'll move on to PSA over here. Of course, they don't offer a 9.5, so it's strictly just the 10 and for the gem mint, and that's about $500. And so for me, I feel like, you know, with Beckett, with BGS, you're really just kind of rolling the dice there. You know, you're just trying to hope that you're going to maybe get a 10, or definitely, you know, fingers crossed you get that black label, because if you do, you're certainly going to get much higher than what SGC or PSA has to offer. But if you do get the 9.5, it's certainly, you know, still worthy of holding on to. But, you know, possibly doing a crossover where maybe you crack open the slab and try to send it off to maybe PSA and see about maybe just getting a 10 and then bumping that value up a little bit more even. But even that sometimes can backfire, and you might only get a 9, and then you've definitely decreased the value. And then to get that 9.5 back from BGS, you have to ask yourself, is it even worth continuing to grade and paying those expenses and whatnot? So it's always a gamble, of course, but with me personally, I've done the most submissions through PSA. I just feel like really with that PSA 10, it's historically it's easier to get, of course, and there's a lot of value there in what it presents. SGC to me, I don't really care for the look or the feel personally, so they're definitely third overall in my opinion. PSA, because of what it presents and the value there, I really like. I think the look, it's simple. The feel of it all, it's very simple. Even though Beckett has, I feel like, maybe a little bit of a better edge as far as durability. It's a stronger feel to the casing, and even some of the looks and the subgrades I think are huge and set that apart. But to me personally, I'm a PSA guy all the way. I feel like it just ultimately it's going to provide the most value. It's been around the longest, so historically it's got, you know, they've just kind of set the standard for everything, if you will, for the hobby. And like I said, that's not everybody's, you know, not everybody's cup of tea. Not everybody's going to agree with that, and that's okay. I like each one for their own reasons, if you will. SGC, I'm still trying to find what those reasons are, I guess. I think maybe they're just the black, it's the tuxedo, it's starting to kind of wear on me a little bit where I do like it, but I think I personally prefer the look of BGS the most, but I do like PSA just because I feel like the value is definitely there, and it's going to continue to be there more probably than the rest. But definitely in the comments down below, let me know what you guys think. I know this was a long video. I appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully you found it informative, at least somewhat. And let me know also who you prefer between these three companies and why. And also make sure you don't miss out on the huge giveaway we're doing. If you haven't seen that yet, it's in my previous video, my first PSA sub results that I got back. It does mention kind of what to do on there. Just make sure you sub, like, comment on that video, and it'll let you know what to do, what kind of comment to leave that is. But yeah, definitely appreciate you guys watching. Let me know if you have any questions about the whole process. I do plan on doing a lot more submissions. I'm definitely going to be doing some through BGS, hopefully in the near future as well. Got a mail day coming up, so all kinds of fun stuff planned for the future. But till next time, guys, take it easy.